That's right.
Well, we're just about to turn the corner here to the new season, to the new year, 2022.
Mhm.
What kind of goals or what kind of plans you have for the new year and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was telling somebody this the other day. It's like the goals personally are, especially being a dad, are you realize when I was young, my dad was always like, set goals, set goals, set goals, and I didn't even know what that meant, and it was like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. I feel like doing that with your child is really fun. For me now, setting those goals to see my daughter, being able to jump in the lake, being able to swim across the pool, being able to, you know, ride a bike, ride a motorcycle, like I want my daughter to be able to ride a motorcycle. And she's, so seeing those goals, which by the way, some people think I'm crazy for that, but like seeing those goals are through her eyes is really fun to do. But for me, it's it's more building projects. Like I said, we have a couple building shows that we're going to start working on in the new year, and that for me is like, that's what I love to do. And I love to also not get my whole family involved because my wife doesn't love building, but my daughter, she's starting to, which is really cool.
What's doing, everybody? Welcome to First Class Fatherhood. I'm Alec Lace, and before I hit you with today's interview, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the link in the description so you can listen to all of the interviews I've done with so many tremendous dads, including Dana White, Deion Sanders, Tony Hawk, and so many others. Now let's get going with today's interview. Joining me now, First Class Father, Carter Oosterhouse. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Let's start just like this. How many kids do you have? How old?
I have one. She is 4, and she's about to be 5 here. She's a Christmas baby, so it makes things a little tricky. I'm constantly asking other people, like, wait, you're a Christmas baby, or she's the day after, but still, it's pretty close. How do you deal with that? What are the days that you actually have the birthday, and so we're trying to figure all of that out. But she's the best. She, little 4-year-old going on 14 right now.
Yeah, challenging too to schedule birthday parties. I have 4 kids. My one son's birthday just passed, and my wife's birthday is coming up right before Christmas. So it's it's a little bit of a challenging time to arrange and schedule everything. But
That's
always
right.
awesome and fun. So if you could, Carter, here, please just take a minute to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, so basically for me, I started building. I'm a builder by trade. And then luckily, when I moved out to Los Angeles, it was kind of quick. But and when I say quick, I was working any job that I could. But I was also building. And somebody had mentioned after a couple of years of being in town that, hey, there's this show and it's called Trading Spaces. And I got on that show, and that was about 18 years ago. I started as the Carpenter on that show. And then started working my way through a bunch of home remodeling shows with HGTV and everybody else. And, right now I'm working on the Great Christmas Light Fight hosting. So I'm hosting more shows. That's on ABC. And we're in our 10th season of that show. And, for me personally, I want to go back to building. And we hope to be doing that in the next year. So we got a couple shows lined up.
Very cool. Yeah, you've had a wildly successful career here. So take me back. You said almost 5 years then. About how old were you when you became a dad, and how did that experience change your perspective on life?
So look, my wife and I, we got married about 10 years ago, and the whole focus was to, start a family. She's an actress as well, and she wanted to, really start the family. I wanted to, I imagine I'd have 6 kids by now, to tell you the truth. And it was not, working out the way that we, had planned. Everybody thinks that you figure out what your plan is, you kind of know what it's going to be like or look like in your head. It doesn't work out that way. So you kind of have to modify things. And we were lucky enough, we did have to go through a surrogate, but we were lucky enough to have our child, and, she's such a blessing, and we're so fortunate. We think, maybe there's adoption one day down the road, and we'll see how that goes. But, it's just great. It's one of the, everybody says, oh, once you get that child, things are going to change in your life. And the beauty of it is not just, it's the change you have almost, it's constant, obviously, but it's that consistent change that you realize, well, I didn't think I would think this at 2 years old. I didn't think I would think that at 3 years old, because it's just these new beginnings, for a parent, which is really fun. You feel like, you're growing up a little bit more every single day.
Yeah, and each year does present its own challenges and growing. I have 2 teenagers in high school right now, so it's a whole new experience for me. So
That's right. That's
I
right.
definitely hear what you're saying here. And I've had several other dads on the podcast that went through the surrogacy process. What
Hmm.
was that experience like for you? What did you know about it heading in there, or did you do your research? Was it what you expected? What was it like for you?
Yeah, the surrogacy program, living in Los Angeles was a little tricky to navigate through because we wanted, I don't know if authenticity is the word, but we wanted it to, we wanted it as close as we could within our world. And so, and what I mean by that, like I said, I thought we'd have 6 kids by now. Maybe my wife would think different, but we really wanted kids. I love being around kids. I wanted to be a teacher when I was growing up, and so the surrogacy thing was something that we really researched as much as we could. Trying to figure out what the best who the person that fit with us the best, as far as not just the surrogate but the surrogacy, the company, and asking around other people who had done it before, why they did it, what their outcome was, and it took a minute, and then you take the whole, making sure the embryo, the egg. I mean, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of variables that go within that, just to make sure you know things work. At the end of the day, things will work, and fortunately for modern science and technology, we were able to make it happen, and we got our wonderful daughter. And so it was a lot to research, and it was a lot to go down. There's a lot of emotion, on both sides. From my wife. My wife is such a trooper. She has been through a lot, and trying to have a baby, and then when we did, man, it was the best thing in the world. It made it all more worth the while.
Yeah, well said, Carter. And one thing about having children is it really accelerates your relationship. Like I said, I'm married 17 years now. What was the
Mhm.
experience like for you watching your wife take on the role of motherhood and become a mom?
Well, that's really special too. Seeing that motherly quality that my wife Amy has, and seeing how she really has that quality, not just take care of our daughter, but me too. And it's really funny because you're like, oh my gosh, she's like, she's making food for all of us right now. This is like such a. I remember this when I was a little kid, and my mom used to do this, and now it seems like, oh, I'm the adult. What's happening? But it's also really sweet to see those moments are real. Like, there's nothing like a child and a mother relationship that is so special. There's such a quality bond there that's instant. And as much as I love to be the dad who goes outside and teach my daughter how to ride a bike, swim in the lake, jump in a pool, whatever that is, there's still that relationship that exists on such a crazy level. It's fun to see.
Yeah, very well said. And I know, Christmas time is here. We know that when we see the great Christmas light fight showing up. What kind of Christmas, do you have any traditions that you guys have, passed on here, or that you've started with your
Yeah.
daughter? And did you do the elf on the shelf, the whole bit? What is it like for
Oh,
you guys?
Elf on the Shelf, bubble gum. Last year was Birdie. This year it's bubble gum, and my wife and I, we travel a lot for work, and right now we're based out of Atlanta, but we always go back to, most of the time we go back to Michigan where there's snow. It feels like a white Christmas, which is great. We usually we cut the tree down, that whole shebang. It's like everything is, everything happens during the season, but depends on when we get to go back because of work. So sometimes we're like, we have a little time to prep. And then now that our daughter's in school, she's got like Christmas plays, stuff like that. So it gives us less time to plan. But when we go back, we put up lights. Look, working on the Great Christmas Light Fight, you're never going to put up as many lights as these people do. So I don't even want to compete, because my neighbors automatically think that, oh, he's probably going to be really good. And then if I'm not, they're going to, they're going to judge me. So I just don't do that much.
Yeah, it's a tall order to live up to some of what I've seen on the show. It's
Without a doubt.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
And then bringing it back into you as a dad here, what would you consider to be the top values that you hope to instill in your daughter growing up?
Well, I mean, look, everybody wants to, instill values into into their children, and I think, me included. And it's just being, it's being fair, honest, and all those qualities. Like today, she was just like, she was really good. She's sharing some little candies she had with me, and so it was so sweet because she was just saying, oh, and I'm trying to go through this elaborate reason why sharing is great. And she goes, sharing's caring, Dad. Sharing's caring. And that's a simple, it's just, when you hear kids say things and they understand why, okay, you're like, you get it. For me growing up, my parents were really big in, my dad had the really the tough work ethic, and my mom was like the nurturer. And I felt like that combination, for me, I thought it was a great upbringing. I really appreciate that. And so, my wife and I were trying to balance that as well. To have that love, but that discipline too.
Yeah, and you mentioned discipline there. Like I said, I have four kids. My only girl is my youngest. She's 7 years
Mm,
old now, and so my
right.
discipline with her definitely needs a little brushing up. I'm still a work in progress, but I know she's young yet. But what type of
Yeah.
disciplinarian are you so far as a dad, and is that different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
Oh gosh, the disciplinary that I grew up with is completely different. I feel like I'm a softie compared to my dad. My dad was very much like, don't sit in front of the TV. You got to go work. You should be moving around, doing stuff outside. Go outside. He's an old farmer, so that was the style. But that's also very good motivating. I still, my age, I still get motivated even when my dad is not around because I feel like I should be doing something. But the discipline with a 4-year old, I think, look, the love and the nurture goes a long way. With an only child, it's also a little slippery slope too, because you don't know, you don't want to give too much. You like an only child, you talk to some, you're like, oh, you're an only child. Whoa, you maybe, yeah, I can see you're an only child, but then some other only children, you're like, oh, well, you kind of seem like you turned out great. But that's with everybody, right? So I feel like you don't want to give the only child too much attention, but at the same time, a discipline as well. When they do something wrong, you're letting them know that they did something wrong, and maybe that timeout happens. But at the same time, a lot of love goes into that as well.
Yeah, well said, Carter. And I love the fact that your background is in carpentry, and then you were able to turn that into a huge success. I think the trades are definitely something people overlook a lot of times. I'm a mechanic. I've been a
Hmm.
railroad mechanic for over 20 years, and it's
Yeah.
something that that I will try to instill in my kids is
Right.
getting those. I have a brother that was a plumber for 30 years. It's like we come from
Hmm.
that type
Yeah.
of philosophy of getting in there, getting your hands dirty. You can make a good living out of it. It seems like today
Yep.
everyone kind of overlooks that a little bit. But those trades now, what was the experience like for you going from starting as carpentry as a kid to now working on $1 million homes and making this big
Yeah.
career that you've done out of it? What has
Yeah.
that been like for you?
Well, it's been good. I feel like the work ethic has not faltered even, as I get older. When I first started, look, I was constantly working, meaning when I was started on shows, working more than I should be performing on TV. And I don't even know how I got hired, but I was pretty shy when I first started. But I knew I had to get that job done. Knew I had to make sure that that table was built or this room was finished. And so for that, I really enjoy that upbringing that I have. And so I feel as things have transpired, because I'm still capable of like taking care of our house. I mean, we're still, we're restoring an old barn that's 120 years old on our property right now, and I'm doing it with the help of some friends. So like that stuff's never going to go away. And having those traits and those qualities like I feel like in your family, I mean, it's just like my family. So I know if I need some help, I'll go ask one of my cousins who's an electrician. I'll be like, hey, come on over because I need a little help trying to figure this out. And there's such a beauty in that because you kind of know you can pretty much get whatever you want to get done completed.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like this for you, but I know being a mechanic right now, the window ain't working right on the van. So my wife's like, "What kind of mechanic are you? Let's get this window fixed up." It's like
Right.
always seems something going out my own. Does that happen with you? And you're like, "Hey, Carpenter, we need a little help
Yeah.
over here." Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that happens. It seems to happen to all. Like my brother, the
Right.
plumber, he's got a leaky sink all the time. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's like your home is the last to get finished, right?
Right.
And so it's a funny story. Like when I bought this old farmhouse up in Michigan, northern Michigan, when I was 29. And what I loved about it was not even there full time because I was traveling around for shows and stuff. But what I loved about it is that I could take apart a guest bathroom and not finish it. I would take it apart and say, "Oh, I saw this new like whatever sink or maybe some cabinetry, and I want to put this in, but I got to go get it." A month or two or three or four or five would go by, and I wouldn't finish that bathroom. Anyway, fast forward, I get married to my wife a couple years after, and she comes in the house and she's like, first thing we're doing is getting these rooms done. This is ridiculous. And I'm like, no, but I wanted to do this and that, so that kind of changed a little bit. But yeah, that still happens all the time where I feel like everybody expects that I should have everything dialed in, and that is not the case. And I don't think that's the case with most, just like you.
Yeah, 100%. And then, like you mentioned there before, your neighbors would expect you to have the biggest Christmas lights on your house because of the great Christmas light fight. Bring it back to that show real quick. Are you amazed by how it changes from season to season? Like, do you think like, wow, no one's going to be able to top this? And then all of a sudden they go another level? Because there's some in my neighborhood here. I mean, cars fill up down the block to see some of these homes. Totally. It's amazing the talent that people put into this.
Right. And some people think that it's all about the number of lights, which it is, because the normal average home probably has whatever that is on the show has maybe 100, 200,000 lights on it. That does not mean that's what you have to get on the show by any stretch of the means. The most we've ever seen on one place is 7 million lights, which is just bananas. But that is not, I feel like during COVID, tell you the truth, last year when we were shooting, I just felt like people, look, the reason people put lights up is because they do it for their neighbors, their family, their community, and they want to give back to their community, right? So other people, maybe they see this on TV and they wish they could see it at Disney World, something, whatever, these people create these spaces in their communities and they do it for their neighbors. So cars do back up and everybody gets a chance to turn on that dial, that radio maybe, and see them sing the songs. And it's a really beautiful thing. Well, during COVID, when that happened, we were all, everybody's locked away. And when it, especially when it first started, right? So people are not like running around but they still could get in their car and go see their neighbors display. And more people were doing it that started doing it because they had more time at home. I felt being a judge on the show last year, especially, and this year too, that it just felt more, the personal relationship and connection was there with a lot of these homeowners. And it felt so good because there's like this rejuvenation of, why are we here? Where's humanity? Oh, it's right here. Oh, this is awesome. How did I get so lucky to be on this show?
Right. Yeah. You don't have to look any further than your own backyard sometimes. Right. And I know, and you mentioned before that your wife constantly traveling, work and stuff like that. One of the silver linings, Carter, from the pandemic that I've heard a lot from the dads is the fact that they've been able to stay put and they haven't had to do the traveling and they've been able to spend some more time. And by doing so, they say, wow, I realized what I'm missing out on here. What was your experience, especially having a young daughter during the COVID, pandemic at the height of it? What was it like for you and your family?
So for us, during the height of it, you're right. Sitting home, being able to be home with the family was something that was so special because like my wife and I we travel for our work. We travel all the time. But at the height of it, especially when it first started, it was just like, everybody's on lockdown. Nobody knew what to do. And I was like, you know what? This is on our radar. I hope that this is just going to be a blimp on the radar and we are going to move on at some point. And let's just enjoy this time. And we took those, like everybody, we got annoyed with each other and stuff like that. but it was cool. It was cool to like really see those progressions, especially within, with your child and the family dynamic, to really seeing how that, some people got sick of each other, right? Some people were like, oh, this is not going to work at all. I got to go back to work. And some people, it worked and it made it even stronger. And that's really cool, to hear those stories, because it definitely did with us.
Yeah, sometimes those board games can get a little out of control after day 5 of the lockdown.
That's right. Yeah, so, that's right.
Well, we're just about to turn the corner here to the new season, to the new year, 2022. What kind of goals or what kind of plans you have for the new year and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was telling somebody this the other day. It's like the goals personally are, especially being a dad, you realize when I was young, my dad was always like, set goals, and I didn't even know what that meant, and it was like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. I feel like doing that with your child is really fun. For me now, setting those goals to see my daughter, being able to jump in the lake, being able to swim across the pool, being able to, ride a bike, ride a motorcycle, like I want my daughter to be able to ride a motorcycle. And she's, so seeing those goals, which by the way, some people think I'm crazy for that, but like seeing those goals are through her eyes is really fun to do. But for me, it's, it's more building projects. Like I said, we have a couple building shows that we're going to start working on in the new year. And that for me is like, that's what I love to do. And I love to also not get my whole family involved because my wife doesn't love building, but my daughter, she's starting to, which is really cool.
Very cool. You got her a little play set tool belt there in the whole bit or what?
I mean, she's got the real thing. She's got the real hammer. She had the play set, and then she kind of graduated. So whenever Dad's doing a project, she's right there with me, which is funny because that's how I started. I started when I was 10 years old. I started cleaning up around the job sites. Now she's, 4 this summer. She was always helping me clean up and, take care of stuff. She's not making any miter cuts just yet, so that's probably good, but soon.
Yeah, and before I hit you with the last question, you brought up a good point there. It's like me too. Like I went through that apprenticeship portion of learning the trade before moving on up and doing the bigger
Yeah.
jobs, and that's the way it is with the trades. And it seems like today
Hmm.
that instant gratification, people want to just
Hmm.
skip that part and go
Hmm.
right to the bigger money and get paid what other
Uh,
people are getting paid that have been doing it for 30 years. And it
yeah.
doesn't work that way. We see
No.
that a lot. Even in
It
like the NFL, you used to be able to develop a quarterback for
isn't.
5 years. Now, if
Yeah.
he doesn't hit a home run on the
Produce.
first
Yeah.
day, he's out.
That's totally true. It's totally true. It's like, there's something very sweet, or I guess sincere, and it builds the backbone of whatever you're doing. The amount of walls that I had to demo for, 3 years, 3 summers that I had to endure with my buddies, just going in, big industrial places and knocking walls down and picking up block. That's what we had to do. But you know what? That earned a lot of street cred with the guys that I was working with that I still work with today. And they knew that, okay, this guy's going to probably stick with it. He's not, maybe not enjoying this, but at least sticking with it. And that was that's something that you're right. A lot of kids want to just skip to the good part and make the money, and that it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, and I feel like the best way to learn how to do something right is to do it wrong a lot of times. You know what I mean? It
Right.
really helps
Right.
in that
Yeah.
development. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
all right. Well, last thing I want to hit you with here, Carter. I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is like, people always told me, oh, when you say your kid does something, they go to bed so easily, or they sleep throughout the night, and always add right now at the end of any sentence, because it's true. It's like 1 to 4, it's like people would say, just add right now after every sentence you make about your kid, because that's gonna change. Those things change, even if they're the best or the worst. Those things will change as that child progresses.
Yeah, very well said. Love the message. It's been a lot of fun for me. I got to say, Carter Oosterhouse, your first class father all the way. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your
So
time
are
here at
you.
First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Super fun.